Welcome to Legal Services of Eastern Missouri's Introduction to CED by Tracy James and Ebony Reed, Esquire. What is CED and what do we do? Basically, CED is a Community Economic Development Program that's been started back in 2011 at Legal Services of Eastern Missouri, which was one of the few and first units, programs that offered transactional legal help to underrepresented people, offering legal help for their businesses and also nonprofits. What was really interesting and novel about the program is that it was one of the first that offered help for businesses. And it would be free legal assistance, no cost out of pocket for qualified clients and individuals. And the other thing about CED that's interesting is that it matches the clients with experienced business attorneys who volunteer for the program. Part of the mission and objectives of Community Economic Development, or otherwise known as CED, is outreach to underserved individuals, unrepresented individuals, and those organizations who serve the same types of clients that Legal Services of Eastern Missouri has. Also those that nonprofits that have the same type of mission or cannot even afford legal help. Part of it is the legal work for startup businesses and nonprofits, and currently, in the past 6 years, almost 7 years, served St. Louis City and St. Louis County and the neighboring counties in legal services service area in Eastern Missouri, mainly the surrounding counties around St. Louis metropolitan area. Of course, the goals are to eliminate poverty by increasing wealth to the neighborhoods is the main goal, is to strengthen neighborhoods. Also to offer the legal help to for-profit and nonprofit startups to be successful. And if they're successful, those owners and those that are being served by the organization will be in a much better situation financially, or at least with services provided. And the goal is to create jobs, stabilize the community, becoming an anchor for that community. What exactly does CED do? Well, first and foremost, it reaches out to the community. It does a lot of outreach, a couple of times a week, going out and going to health fairs, school fairs, having a table at the airport authorities, business entrepreneur seminar, or going to the library to go ahead and let people know about what they do. We also offer workshops and presentations on substantive legal topics for our client base. We also offer legal information clinics where we have attorneys listen to prospective clients about their legal needs, about businesses and nonprofits, and giving them general information. And we also do, and main part of our practice is one-on-one client representation, where we take on clients for free and give them the help that they need. We also try and increase our capacity by recruiting volunteer attorneys, otherwise known as VLs, to do the work for CED. And we've been very successful. As of the end of December 2017, we've recruited almost 225 attorneys to volunteer for our program. What exactly do we do? Well, first of all, we do licensing and regulatory law, intellectual property, corporate compliance, nonprofit formation, and 501c3 tax exemption, entity formation, contracts, real estate, and employment law. We do a lot of different things depending on what the legal needs of the client has. For nonprofits, the biggest two are not only the nonprofit formation, registering with the Secretary of State for Missouri, also creating or amending their bylaws, and then getting them ready for 501c3 tax exemption, either through the 1023-EZ process or the more expensive and cumbersome 1023 application. We also do a variety of different types of licensing regulatory issues, from trucking to food preparation to cosmetics. We do intellectual property, trademark applications at the state and federal level. We also help with making sure that if there's more than one partner in a LLC, that they have a multi-member operating agreement filed with the Secretary of State. We also review and also draft contracts, all sorts, for our clients. We help with leases, negotiating, drafting leases, and other types of real estate agreements, including purchase agreements. We assist with employment law in all aspects, whether it's advising a client about whether they should hire people as an employee or have independent contractors, and the differences and implications of both. We also advise on non-disclosure agreements and employee handbooks, to name a few. Some of the things that we have done as part of the CED work, as I mentioned, was trademark applications, educating clients about independent contractors, employee status, real estate purchase agreements, incorporating businesses and nonprofits, which for the most part, most of our clients tend to go with a limited liability corporation, but it depends on their legal needs and their tax implications. Licensing applications with their business, assisting with MBE, WMBE certification, where we not necessarily write the application, but we help them with the legal needs so that when they do have their application interview with a certifying agency, that it goes successfully because they have the legal parts in place. We also draft, as mentioned, the bylaws and articles of incorporation for nonprofits, and we do a lot of many different things, but these are the main ones. What does CED not do? Well, we do not help with adult entertainment, whether it's nightclubs, videos, other things of that nature. We don't help with weapons or having access to weapons. We generally do not help with obtaining liquor licenses. We do not handle client funds. We don't do patents. We usually refer out to that. We don't do litigation, meaning if someone is being sued who's a client, or if they want to sue somebody, we do not help with that. We refer out, as well as we don't do landlords in general, unless it's for transitory housing, or they're going to be flipping a house that they're rehabbing and they don't plan to have tenants in there. If we do have transitory housing or transition housing for those that are re-entering the workforce, for instance, we could not have more than 8 to 10 beds in that particular organization or house. And we don't do business dissolution or business divorces. We also make sure that if there's more than one owner of the company or of a business, that we make sure that all of them need to qualify, become clients. Okay, what are the type of clients we have? Well, 55% historically have been for-profits and 45% are nonprofits. The majority of our clients since 2011 have been women. Female clients are a predominant part of our client base. And 71% of our clients are between 0 and 125% above the federal poverty level. 16%, 126 to 200% above the federal poverty level. And then 13% are 201 to 300% above the federal poverty level to qualify as for-profit clients. That is different than general legal services of Eastern Missouri clients who have to be between 125% and below to qualify for services. We also tend to have clients historically that are between the ages of 26 and 45. And similar bell-shaped curve, 26% or 25 and younger, and then 22%, a little bit less, are age 46 to 59. So we tend to skew between 25 to 45. Where do we usually find our clients? Well, we do a lot of outreach, and so we try and partner with other community organizations as much as we can, where we do a lot of that. We also do word of mouth, meaning past clients, others that are current clients, or they might have been maybe others within the organization referred from one of our other substantive legal units like housing or immigration or public benefits. We also get a large percentage from attorneys and other professionals such as accountants who might refer people to us. And then a much smaller percentage are on social media and or legal services website, but are increasing since 2011 in terms of contacting us on our website. Well, as mentioned previously, a lot of the work that our small unit does, which consists currently of a staff attorney, a managing attorney, and a paralegal, can only do so much. Try and leverage our standing in the community and with our volunteer lawyers, our VLs, to do a lot more. Many of our VLs have done presentations and workshops to teach on substantive topics that we've either created and that they use, or that they go ahead and use as a base and amend it to their needs, and have done lots of presentations and workshops in the community through our different partners that last 1 to 3 hours. We also do legal information sessions with our community partners, and that's wonderful for staff, for law firms to staff. And we also do one-on-one client representation. Let's go ahead and go through this. What we try and have our volunteer attorneys do before they do anything is, if they're interested, is to be sent or to use our pro bono volunteer form that's specifically made for community economic development. An attorney might have done a volunteer lawyer application through our volunteer lawyers program that's a little bit more general, but if they want to go ahead and volunteer for CED, they can fill this out. That gives a little bit of background, find out about their legal education, if they're admitted to practice in Missouri with their Missouri bar number, and that they have their practice interests, what they prefer to do. And if there's something that an attorney doesn't know about substantively but would like to learn, we can offer CLE credit and give them some training on it if they want to. We also have availability if they're interested in volunteering in the morning, afternoons, evenings, and also on Saturdays. And then also areas or days that an attorney is not available. We ask that they go ahead and give us whatever information they have about whether if they want to do one-on-one representation, they want to interview potential clients at our offices, or if they want to do it at a legal information session, a legal clinic, or if they're interested in teaching, or if they are interested in just providing some limited advice, like a special knowledge, such as trademark, to our attorneys or clients. To drill down a little bit on what our volunteer attorneys can do, specifically with presentations and workshops, we've offered these types of workshops in the past, and we can provide those presentations to volunteer lawyers to help them prepare and to give information for these sessions, which would last maybe from an hour to up to 3 hours, depending on the audience and what the community partner would like. We've done things from employees versus independent contractors, legal issues to consider as a contractor, employment issues, intellectual property basics, general information about legal issues for your business, becoming a tax-exempt organization, choice of entity, such as LLC, S Corp, C Corp, etc., contracts, keeping the tax-exempt organization compliant, how to start a nonprofit. And we're always willing to create other presentations for our volunteer lawyers. We also have legal information sessions, or we like to call legal clinics, that we staff on site as well as through our many different community partners, some of whom are listed here. As mentioned previously, this is great for law firms to staff. Often they are 2-hour clinics where we offer 30-minute sessions. And it's wonderful, especially if a law firm would like to go ahead and sponsor or adopt a community partner, to have this coming in every other month, or 3 times a year, or 4 times a year, or just depending on what it might be. Some of our partners are like MOCAN, Better Family Life, St. Louis County Library, Missouri Job Center, Kingdom House, International Institute, Grace Hill, and Justin Peterson. We offer some checklists for our volunteer lawyers to help them just to issue spot. We provide notes, we provide training. We also ask that we often do the screening ahead of time, not to become their clients necessarily, not to become clients of CED, but just to give general information. And if this particular person or entity is interested in becoming a client, if they're ready, helps in pre-screening in some cases. But we always have a waiver, non-disclosure waiver, saying that we do not represent them. There's no attorney-client privilege that's created. If someone has attended a legal information session, that attorney who has interviewed them can have first dibs, so to speak, in representing them one-on-one if they really like what this potential client might be doing. Our bread and butter, though, is one-on-one client representation. When you're filling out a CED information form, please mention that you're interested in doing this type of work, especially if you are part of a larger law firm, might have an appointed pro bono coordinator who would be the go-to person in reaching out to us, as well as coordinating with us if you want to take on a case. Normally, if your firm is interested, the pro bono coordinator would be listed on the distribution list and would receive emails or other notices about current cases that are available to be picked up through the Community Economic Development Program. If you're part of a smaller firm or a solo practitioner, you would go ahead and put your name on the list, and others who are emailed would not know that you're on the list. We would go ahead and handle the paperwork, the screening. We offer $1 million of malpractice insurance if you volunteer. We offer substantive law training and office space to meet with the client if needed. But we don't manage client funds, nor do we ask you to do so, nor do we charge fees to the client. If, for instance, you're doing a trademark search or there are other fees associated, please let the client know ahead of time if you're going to take on the case that you would be charging something separately for handling entity formation or trademark application or filing something with the IRS. Not that you would charge the legal fees, but that you would be able to handle the fees themselves to be filed in their name. CED and legal services in general do not handle client funds, and we do not charge our clients. And so if you do take on a client and you do have that as part of your practice, please let them know ahead of time. Generally, our length of representation of client depends on the difficulty in the work and what's needed. For instance, a for-profit entrepreneurial client might have discrete legal needs that can be done within a month, 3 months, 6 months, it just depends. But it's much shorter generally than a nonprofit, because if their nonprofit's going to be a 501c3 tax-exempt organization, it might take anywhere from 4 weeks to 6 months to get their nonprofit tax-exempt status, depending on if they do the EZ or regular 1023 route. We generally do not have clients that stay on as our clients. We try to increase our capacity by doing discrete legal representation for them. If they qualify after they've become a client and we finish the client work and they come back to us within that year, we generally don't have to go through financial eligibility again, and we'll help them. If it's been a year or more, then we usually have to ask for financial eligibility, and we do screening in that way. Give a little bit of background about who our clients are and how can they become clients. We have these particular steps that assist. One is eligibility intake. The other is meeting with the potential client to determine the fit and readiness, to see if they're ready, if they have a business plan, if they've thought out their idea, if they've worked with a community partner, to see if they're ready. If we've met with the potential client, usually through an attorney or an emeritus attorney, once that happens, they determine whether or not this person or entity is ready to become a client. We then have a case summary drafted. We check for conflicts internally. If everything checks out, we then put the case on distribution through a distribution email or notice for our volunteer attorneys to select. If after 2 weeks that it's been on distribution, so to speak, and the case has not been selected, then we usually take the work in-house for our staff and or managing attorney to take on. If there is a difficult client or a repeat client, or the work might be very hard to place, we might take it on internally within community economic development and not put it on distribution. Generally, about 70% of our cases are out with volunteer attorneys, and only about 30 to 40% of the cases that we accept for one-on-one representation are done in-house. If a volunteer lawyer, a VL, selects a case on the distribution list, then CED, through our paralegal, exchanges information with that attorney or pro bono contact, and then also lets the client know that they've been picked up. We continue to stay on as co-counsel with the outside attorney, and we try and do periodic updates to check in on both the client and also the volunteer attorney to make sure that the parties are communicating with each other, and if there's any particular problems that might arise that we might be able to assist, or if there are some questions that either the client or the volunteer attorney might have. What's the process to become a CED client? First of all, we look at eligibility intake. There are 2 different processes depending on if the client is going to be a for-profit or a nonprofit client. For for-profit clients, they cannot be more than 300% above the federal poverty guidelines that are issued by the U.S. government every year. We take out certain types of eligible expenses such as housing, transportation costs. We figure out how many people are in the household or they're supporting. And generally, under Legal Services of Eastern Missouri's current guidelines, that for-profit clients cannot have more than $7,500 in assets other than in their first home, business, or vehicle. They must live in LSCM service area or have an office in LSCM. They usually must have a business plan and show evidence of such, to show that evidence has shown that businesses that have a business plan or a strategic plan tend to be more successful 5 years out than those that do not. They must have legal work that needs to be done for that particular startup. If it's a nonprofit that's interested in becoming a CED client, they must fit within our priorities. They must complete a nonprofit questionnaire that we send out, and generally cannot afford legal help. If they are an existing nonprofit, they must be able to show legal need, that they do not have the resources, financial need. They do not have the resources to pay for an attorney, and that they also provide some sort of benefit, especially to our underserved population within the state of Missouri. We generally do not help those that are national only in origin, or they have a focus on international. We try to keep it local as much as possible, or at least originate. They also must pass legal services conflict check. The second part is once we go through eligibility intake, we screen our potential clients. Sometimes they're pre-screened at legal information clinics. That is one step. It depends on how far or how long or how complicated their legal issues are. Oftentimes with our legal information clinics, they're about 30 minutes for an interview, so it might or might not have enough to be said during that time. If the notes from the volunteer attorney states that they're ready to become a client, then generally we will take their word for it and then ask some other questions before drafting a case summary. Other times, we find our clients at for-profit office hours that are held weekly at our Forest Park location by emeritus volunteer attorneys. We usually have them on Wednesday mornings, and they are usually an hour in length. Our nonprofit clinic is held at our Forest Park location on the last Tuesday of the month, and that is staffed by the Association of Corporate Counsel Volunteer Attorneys. They've done a fabulous job. Once they've met with a volunteer attorney, one of our staff or legal interns would draft a case summary and check for conflicts. An example of something like that is what it looks like here. It can be longer, especially if there's a distribution summary where CED has to eliminate personal identifiable information that's going to go out to the volunteer attorneys to be picked up so that we don't violate any type of confidentiality. There are some times that if there's so much need and we don't have enough staff or volunteer attorneys are not going to pick up a case, we might just do a case summary and provide general information or specific information and then close their matter if we cannot handle the case or we know that we're going to be overloaded. But generally we try and at the outset manage expectations with our would-be clients. So once the case summary is drafted and checked for content, then we put it on distribution. Here's an example of one that we've done. And we have the steps that are given out by email or by notice to our pro bono coordinators and volunteer attorneys who've signed up for one-on-one representation. And here's an example of one such potential client that they can have. And it gives an idea, at least at the outset, of what the legal needs are. If an attorney picks up a case, CED, through our paralegal usually, notifies the volunteer lawyer and the client that the case has been picked up. CED sends out retainer agreements. Usually we have that executed prior to having a case go out on distribution. But also, or often, the volunteer lawyer's firm might send out a separate retainer agreement, depending on their requirements of what the legal work would be done. If there is additional work that needs to be done and the volunteer lawyer agrees to it, then an amended retainer with that updated legal work that needs to be done needs to be sent and signed by the client. An attorney who has decided to take on a case should contact the client within 1 week of being notified to manage expectations. We try and help internally by having our office contact the attorney and the client to make sure that the attorney and client have contacted each other. Once that happens, we might contact the attorney and the client 2 weeks out after the case has been picked up, and then generally on a month-to-month basis until the work is done, or if the volunteer attorney says that it would take more than a month, and contact the attorney and the client within that set amount of time. We try and state that we cannot allow a client not to be contacted more than 60 days, generally. So we try and do it on a month to 2 months out, that we contact each party to make sure that the work is going on smoothly and what still needs to be done. Oftentimes, we would send out an email with asking, how is it going, what needs to be done, and we send out an example like this, a case update. And if the case is ready to be closed, it says what's been done, what needs to be done, any other issues, and maybe the amount of hours, so that we can go ahead and present that and tally it for our grantors who give us money to run the program. Sometimes in dealing with this particular client population, it is a little difficult because the client might stop all contact or something happens. It's a little harder to keep in contact with the client as the legal representation is going. There are many different reasons for it. But on the outset, try and understand what exactly is the sophistication of the client that you're dealing with. Maybe their educational level or where they're from, especially if they are a refugee. They might have limited English or educational background. So that's always good to know, especially in trying to keep the legalese from becoming too much and trying to speak in plain English. Try and use plain language when possible, and then in your written communications with them, whether it's by email or it's in a letter, make sure that you can look at the lower readability level to 6th grade level, especially in Microsoft products, where Microsoft Word or in Outlook, where it can show the readability statistics, and try and aim for a 6th or 7th grade level, if at all possible. Again, depending on what their educational background and sophistication are. Also might find out what their limitations are, if they prefer US mail, email, phone calls. As a general rule, we recommend that volunteer attorneys do not give out their mobile number unless that is their primary source of communication, and also try not to text the client unless you use a third-party app such as Twilio. Also, to help and not assume what the client wants or needs is to ask clarifying questions. If you have any questions about how to reach out to the client or trying to find a way to communicate with them, or just have questions in general, do not hesitate to contact CED. Sometimes we have clients that just drop off the face of the earth, or it seems like it. And here are some common solutions that we might recommend to help the legal process, the legal experience that they might have with you become a successful one. This might be the first and only time that they've ever met with an attorney. A lot of them might be very skittish about meeting with attorneys in general because they have certain preconceived notions about attorneys. Also realize that a lot of times our client base are working very, very hard. They might be supporting many members of their family. They might be having 1, 2, 3 jobs that they're trying to fit in. They might or might not have transportation They might have to do everything by bus or Metrolink, or that they have a prepaid phone and that their minutes have expired and that phone number might not be still working, or that they're out of time and you cannot get a hold of them. Or they might not even have internet access to use a computer. What's especially challenging is that since St. Louis is #1 in the nation with unbanked population, meaning those people without a bank account, that also might include our client base. And they are less likely to have a bank account and to be financially savvy than the general population. So be aware of some of these things when dealing with our clients. For instance, the client might be working their day job and they can't meet you during the day. The only way that they might be able to meet you is after their work, after 5 o'clock. Might be because that they're watching their children, or that they have another job or two. See if there's a way that they can meet you after regular business hours. If not at your office, then maybe at a coffee shop, or even at legal services, letting us know ahead of time that you need to use one of our conference rooms, which is fine. What's most interesting is that a lot of times clients might not actually meet their attorney face-to-face, but it's only through conference calls or phone calls or emails. It just depends on the situation and how you want to deal with it. Sometimes you cannot get a hold of a client. They won't return your calls. They never seem to be home. You send information to them and the forwarding address is expired or they're no longer there. It might be because they're at work. As mentioned, they have a prepaid phone and they're out of minutes. They might have had to move quickly. They have lack of funds that they cannot pay their bills. They have banking issues. Or they have lack of access to the internet. And they might have to go to the library or to legal services to use our computers. Just be mindful of potential issues. Please communicate and manage expectations with the client at the beginning of representation, just to generally get an idea of what their capacity is and what they're able to do. Don't always assume. Also, be aware of, since our clients are usually underserved, Black females, as a general rule, they might not have the capacity to do a whole lot. A lot of them are micro businesses and they're trying to work on the funds, maybe getting their credit repaired, increase their credit score, maybe to get a loan or something like that. They don't generally have savings. And so they might want to do lots of things, but they might not have the capacity to do it at that time. And so they might be hesitant about moving forward with something, especially in the federal trademark arena, where the fees tend to be more expensive depending on how many categories of goods or services, things that need to be trademarked. Also be aware of when a client has large plans, big plans to do something, and that they want to do everything in the world, and they're asking a lot of you that might be above and beyond what's in the retainer agreement. Part of their fear is that this might be their only shot of having an attorney who's working for them, and that they're not going to get all the work done that they need to get done, and it's a one-shot deal. But we try and tell them at the outset that they're always welcome to come back, and if they still qualify, whether it's within that year or if they go through financial eligibility again after a year's out, that we try and help them as much as we can. We also ask that they have their business plan to be revamped or needs to be more narrowly focused. We might have to refer to CED, refer them to us, or wherever they were originally referred to as one of the community partners, to maybe get a business planner or an accountant to help them with their spreadsheets and with their business planning. this is the end of the Introduction to CED webinar. If you have questions, please do not hesitate to contact our offices. We're usually open 8:30 in the morning to 5 p.m. at night. You can contact us at 1-800-444-0514, or you can email us at ced@lsem.org. Thank you, and have a great day.